Hey everybody, Ryan here at Etrailer. Today on our 2022 Ford Ranger, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster diode wiring kit. Before we get into that though, why don't we just take a minute, check this out, and make sure it's going to work for you. Before we jump right in and get too carried away talking about the tow bar wiring, I figured it'd be useful just to kind of touch base and refresh yourselves on the main parts that we're going to need to flat tow our Ranger down the road in the first place. There's going to be a total of 5 main components that you're going to need. First one is the base plate. That's going to provide us with a solid and reliable attachment point. That way we can hook our tow bar up. Tow bar is going to be that second part, and this is going to be the physical link that actually connects the front of our truck to the back of our motorhome. Third main part will be safety cables, and those are just there in the event of an unlikely disconnect. They're going to keep everything paired together. Fourth main component will be your tow bar wiring, and what this is going to do is transfer lighting functions from the back of your coach to the back of your truck, keeping you safe and legal. And last but not least, the fifth main component will be a supplemental braking system. And what this is going to do is apply the brakes in your Ranger whenever you hit the brakes in your motorhome, bringing you to a more complete and predictable stop. There's 2 other parts that I always like to recommend for the Ranger as well. One of them is called a battery charge line kit. And what that's going to do is essentially trickle charge or maintain your truck's battery whenever you're flat towing it. And that's necessary in a sense because your supplemental braking system uses power from the Ranger's battery, and over time it can deplete the energy in the battery and leave you stranded with a dead battery. And something else I recommend is what's called a brake light relay. And what that's going to do with how the Ranger's set up, let's say if you're all hooked up and you're making a turn, let's say you got your left turn signal on at a stop sign. So the back of your truck, it should have a brake light on one side and the left turn signal going on the other side. Without the brake light relay, the turn signal is overridden. So the back of the truck would just have brake lights on, and then your motorhome would have a turn signal going. It's just confusing, and it's not the right way to do things. So having a brake light relay will solve that issue and let people around you know what's going on. With that out of the way though, this is a perfect example on how our diode wiring is going to work. We got the left turn signal going on the motorhome. It's transferring to the back of our Ranger, and that's going to hold true for the right turn, our tail lights, as well as our brake lights. So we'll have all of our bases covered there. Honestly, when it comes to setting up wiring, I usually 9 times out of 10 recommend the Roadmaster diode wiring, and that definitely holds true with this application as well. I'm just a big fan of them. They work, rarely run into any issues with them, and once they're installed, you're not even going to be able to tell that they're there, really. Everything's going to look factory back here, and being super easy to use, all you're going to have to do when you are ready to flat tow is just go up to the front and plug in a cord. So like I said, you're going to have a connector here at the front of your vehicle. You plug one end into it and the other end to the back of your motorhome, and that's how those lighting signals are going to be transferred. Now there's several different kits, and really the main difference is going to be what type of cable you get. And you want to make sure to get set up with the most appropriate one for your particular setup here. So there's one kit that has a hybrid type cable like the one we have here today, where it's straight, and then at the end of it, closer to the motorhome side, it's coiled. And you would use that if your tow bar has channels in it. All right, that way you could actually route the wiring through the channels and properly utilize them. And this one's also really long too, so if you have a long tow bar, or your hitch on the motorhome sits way far back, something like that might be a good option. Another one you can use if your tow bar has channels is just the straight cable. So you'd run it through there and be able to use them. And these have 7-way round, 6-way round. And then if your tow bar does not have channels, you'd want to use a kit like this. It's coiled, right? That way, it'll sit up high off the ground whenever you're going straight, and then give you that extra length you need when you make those turns and whatnot. That is a 7-to-6 as well, and the 7-to-6 is by far the most popular that we see. It allows you to use other components like a charge line and things like that if you wanted to hook those up. For whatever reason, if you want a 4-way round on the front of your vehicle, that's available as well. We really don't see a whole lot of these, but it is there. And then you have this one. It's just a 4-way flat to another 4-way flat. So if your motorhome does not have a 7-way on the back of it, if it's an older one or something, this might work good for you. And then you have a what I like to call the bare bones kit, right? It's just a kit that doesn't come with any type of umbilical cable like this. It's just your bundle of wire, your diodes, and some ins and outs. And you would use that in a situation like ours today, where the tow bar you picked up already comes with the connector plug and the cable. So for example, the Roadmaster Nighthawk, you get the cable and the connector plug with it. So it doesn't make sense to buy another wiring kit that has, another cable unless you wanted an extra for whatever reason. So that's the one you'd want to go with in a situation like that. So make sure you get the right setup. You try to get you the stuff you need the first time. But other than that, at the end of the day, like I said before, a wiring kit you really can't go wrong with. They just flat out work, clean setup and everything in between. As far as getting it installed goes, it's really not super complicated. It is definitely time consuming, just having to route the wires all the way back there and everything. But as long as you stay focused, you should be able to do this, and hopefully our video here can get you going in the right direction. But with that said, why don't we go ahead, pull it into the garage, and hook it up together now. To begin our installation, I first just started to route some of our wiring while we have the front bumper off. This can be done with the bumper on. A matter of fact, I just wanted to route these with this off. That way we could see better and have a better understanding. So when I started these, at this point we'll put the bumper on and kind of go from there. But what you're going to want to do is take the wires and route it, in the area you're going to be hooking up to your 6-way. I just ran it up through here and straight up into the engine compartment. So I went ahead, got our bumper back on, and you kind of see why I did it this way, because our bracket mounts here and everything else. So yeah, what we can do now is start to hook everything up. So you want to take the rubber dust cover, slide that over everything there, and we're going to strip our wires back. So you'll have a total of 4, green, yellow, white, and brown. And if you're doing a charge line like we are, I suggest doing that at the same time. But you're going to want to strip these wires back to expose the bare wire underneath and give them all a good twist. That way they're nice and tight. And then we're able to grab our connector plug. We're going to have terminals that these will plug into, and they're all going to be labeled. Might be kind of tricky to see on camera there, but you'll have this one TM, which is tail light, so the brown wire goes there. This one's GD for ground, so white wire. LT left turn, yellow wire. RT right turn, green wire. So the way these will work, you take a screwdriver and back that out almost all the way, and then you're going to take the appropriate wire and just slide that into the terminal, hold that in place and tighten it down. And I'll just do that same thing for our remaining wires. So this is what the back of your connector is going to look like once you have all of the diode wires hooked up. With everything hooked up, you can slide our dust cover over, and what you can do is apply some sealer or grease to the terminals just to help protect it against corrosion. I like to wait to do that at the very end once we verified everything works. That way if you have an issue, we're not dealing with a huge mess. So for now though, I'll just temporarily mount this up to the front here. Like I said, once you verify everything works, I'll come in, put our grease in there and tighten this down completely. But With that said, now you can run the wires up into the engine compartment like we showed you. So our diode wiring comes up into the engine compartment, and then right here in this area, I started to break off our white wire and run it over to the driver's side. So what I did, 4 or 5 feet up on our harness here, I just cut the white wire in half very carefully and peeled it back. And the side that goes to our 6-way connector, we're going to need to ground it. The remaining portion of the white wire that's attached to the rest of our harness, I just peeled that off completely. We'll use that in a moment. But the white wire, like I said, is going to be ground. I just have that running kind of over through this area here where it comes up, and we'll attach it to a factory ground right here in this area. You can strip the wiring back and give those wires a good twist. And I'm using a little bit bigger ring terminal. The other one that comes in the kit, you can just screw it to the metal portion of the body of the vehicle, and that'll work just as good, but I'm going to go this route. So this will just slide over the bare end of the wire, and I'll crimp that on. And the factory ground I'm going to utilize will be this bolt right here. I'll go ahead and break that free. Hopefully I have enough space to pull this out and it not hit this fuse box here. And I'm removing this using a 13 millimeter. What I think I might do, instead of pulling this out, it feels like it's buried in there pretty good, is just kind of modify a ring terminal a little bit. So I'm just going to cut a small opening in it like that. That way we can kind of just slide that underneath the head of the bolt there. So back to our wires here. These are going to get routed towards the back of our truck. So they just run straight back. I'll say too, if you're using a braking system that taps into these taps into this wiring, for example, the one we're using, the Stay and Play Duo, does that, make sure to give yourself enough, room, enough slack there to work and be able to do that type of thing. So this is run straight back and drops straight down along the firewall to the underside of your vehicle. When you're doing this, make sure to avoid any hot or moving parts, and you can use zip ties to keep everything in place. Underneath the vehicle, here's where our wiring comes down, and I just have it following, some factory tubes and wiring. So it just runs along through here and continues along our factory tubing there. And at this point, it kind of goes up. I'm going to catch a piece of it there. We're going to have it attached to our cable there. And from there, it runs up and kind of through the hat channel there. So in between this hat channel and the bottom of our bed. And where it goes through there, I put a piece of wire loom on it just to give it a layer of protection. That way it's not sitting on that metal. And it's just going to continue through here and then kind of starts to bend towards the driver's side of our truck. The wire bends, starts to go towards the driver's side, and then just follows our frame rail essentially towards the very back of our truck. So right here in this area, this back corner, you can separate the green wire from the yellow and brown. All right, the yellow and brown is going to go right over, and this will run up into the taillight pocket on the driver's side. That piece of white wire that we removed earlier, take one end of it and, place it with the yellow and brown, because that's going to run up into the driver's side taillight pocket as well. The other end of the white wire is going to go with our green wire over to the passenger side. So this is essentially just a jumper wire. So the green and the other end of our white wire is going to continue just along through here. Right up through here, where it's going to go up into our taillight pocket. But with that said, we'll go ahead, go up top, get the lights removed, and start to hook them up. To get our tail lights removed, drop your tailgate, and there's going to be 2 fasteners holding these in. And so you'll pull these out using an 8mm socket. And the process to get the one out on the passenger side is going to be exactly the same. But we'll just grab this and kind of carefully pull it out almost diagonally like that. And then you can disconnect it, push back on that red tab, and then down on the middle like that. There's going to be a little keeper here you can pull out as well. So we'll set our light off to the side now. Just remove the wire loom and some of the tape to expose our wires here. And I test them as well. And you're looking for the stoplight signal as well as the taillight signal. So the solid red wire, that's going to be for our stop and turn. And the black wire with the white stripe located right next to the red one, that is going to be our taillight signal. So go back a little ways, and we're going to cut these in half. And on each one of the ends, we're going to strip it back, give the wire a twist, and take a blue spade terminal and crimp it on. So do that same process for our 3 remaining ends there. Here's how those ends look, and what I did too is just use some electrical tape to cover up all the wires that we didn't use, you know. And then you can take your diodes, and on the back there's going to be some sticky tape, and peel both these sides off, just stick them together like that. And then the single terminal side, that's going to go onto the terminals here closest to our connector plug. Just slide those over, push them on, and then just go color for color. So the diode where the black wire is going, plug the other end of our black wire, and same deal with the red one. And now we can grab our new wiring that we routed, pull it up through here, and cut them the length. The yellow one, just strip it back, put on a blue terminal, just like we did the factory wires. The white and brown wire is going to be a little bit different. You're going to strip the ends back, but then you're going to twist these together really tight. I'm going to take the yellow terminal, slide that over, and crimp it down. And with the red wire, factory wire, being our stop and turn, our new yellow wire is going to plug in to that diode. And with the black wire with the white stripe being our factory tail light, the brown and white wire will plug into there. So I went ahead and just took a zip tie and just secured our diodes to the bundle of wire there to keep everything a little more solid. And then we can just plug our factory connector back in and reinstall our tail light the opposite way that we removed it. Over here on the passenger side, I essentially did the same exact thing. So the color, the factory wire colors are going to be identical and share the same functions as the other side. Really the only difference is going to be where our new wires plug in. So the green wire, the new green wire, that's going to be our stop and turn. So that plugs into, the diode that has the factory red wire. And our new white wire, that's going to be our taillight signal. So that'll plug into the diode that has the factory black and white wire plugged into it. So essentially identical. Got it all plugged in and ready to go here. So we'll reinstall this one as well. It's a good idea now to test your wiring to make sure that it works properly. I'm using a test box. You can use your motorhome, but keep in mind if that has any issues of its own, it could translate back here and kind of mislead you into thinking it's something you did on the vehicle side. But with that said, we'll go ahead and run through all of our signals. We'll go ahead and turn on our taillights, our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and our brake lights. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the Roadmaster diode wiring kit on our 2022 Ford Ranger.